All right, so get ready because today we're going deep on the one and only Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
We've got excerpts from biographies, timelines, some pretty crazy stats.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they know MJ, right? The championships, those iconic dunks, that tongue thing he did.
Yeah,
But today we're going way beyond the highlights.
exactly. We're trying to figure out, like, what made this guy tick?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what turned this raw talent into a legend?
So before he was Air Jordan, before all that, he was just a kid in North Carolina. And get this, he was way more into baseball.
It's kind of wild, right? But even back then, you could see that competitive fire. Like, he just had to win no matter what game he was playing.
The sources actually mention how he'd bribe his siblings to do his chores.
Like,
Like starting young, right?
hustle was in his DNA.
Yeah,
Even if it wasn't for, like, housework or whatever.
exactly. But that drive, that competitive spirit, it really came out when he was in ninth grade.
Yeah.
Got cut from the varsity basketball team?
Really?
Imagine that. The future Jew 8 cut from the team.
That must have been rough.
He used it as fuel, though, seriously. That roster that they posted up, it became his motivation. Started training like crazy before school even started.
Whoa, dedication right there. A little glimpse of that work ethic we all know about.
Right. So from there, it was on to UNC.
UNC it.
Yep.
But even after high school, all the hype. Jordan wasn't sure he could compete at that level.
That's where Dean Smith comes in. Coach Smith was a legend.
Yeah, he shaped Jordan's game. But it wasn't just about skills, it was about his whole mindset. At UNC, you didn't just get to start, you had to earn it. And that meant defense.
So Jordan, the guy known for scoring, had to become a complete player.
Exactly. Smith saw his potential and pushed him. And that's huge because it built the foundation for the team-oriented Jordan we see later on.
Then, of course, you have the 1982 NCAA championship. That last-second shot, talk about pressure.
Totally foreshadowing, right?
Right.
But it also shows that even with all that individual talent, he thrived in a structured team environment.
Which is interesting because the next stop was the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
And they were a mess.
Oh, yeah. The Bills were, let's just say, a little chaotic. Compared to that disciplined program at UNC, it must have been a huge culture shock for Jordan.
He actually called his teammates the Looney Tunes.
Wow. So no faith in them at first.
Not so much. He was used to excellence. Then you have the 1985-86 season, the broken foot.
Oh, man. Could have ended his career right there.
But he came back stronger. But it also showed this new side of Jordan, this desire for control.
How so?
Clashes with management over when he could play again. Early signs that Jordan wasn't just going to be a passive superstar. He wanted to be involved in every decision.
Interesting.
So then came the scoring titles. He was just racking up points, breaking records left and right. But it wasn't just about individual glory anymore, was it?
This is where Tex Winter's triangle offense comes in. And Phil Jackson is coach. And guess what? Jordan wasn't exactly thrilled at first.
Really? It's kind of wild to think about that clash. You've got this unstoppable scorer, now he's got to share the ball.
Yeah.
What was that tension like?
Well, think about it. Jordan's averaging over 37 points a game that season, but still not winning enough. So he's like, maybe my style doesn't win championships.
Yeah.
The triangle offense, though, it was all about ball movement, strategic positioning, total team effort.
But how do you make that work with a guy who could literally score whenever he wanted? Did Jordan buy in?
It both helped him and challenged him. He was still the main guy, but now it was within a system that made everyone better. It forced him to evolve.
Gotta hand it to Phil Jackson for making that work. And then finally, 1990-91 season, the breakthrough.
Bulls become champions. That picture of Jordan crying on the trophy after all those years of people saying he couldn't lead a team to the top, I mean, that says it all.
Hard to imagine him being so emotional, but it was about more than just him, right? Scottie Pippen's role was growing, and Jordan was starting to trust his teammates in that system.
Exactly. Totally. A team effort. But you can't deny Jordan was the driving force.
And then, boom, 1992, Olympics, the dream team.
Dream team, global phenomenon.
Oh,
Jordan goes to a whole other level.
more than just basketball now. It was his brand, his image. Everything got bigger.
The impact of that global exposure is insane.
He was a global icon. Endorsements everywhere. Nike, McDonald's, Wheaties, even a cologne.
Wow.
But even with all that success, there was a darker side to the story.
Yeah, the gambling stuff. And the murder of his father in '93. You can't talk about Jordan without talking about these things.
It makes you wonder how much those things affected him, his first retirement. Do you think that was because of all that?
It's a question people still ask. Adds to the mystery, right? Even with all the success, life throws curveballs.
And then baseball. What a curveball, right? Trading the court for the field.
Like he needed to get away, The pressure of the NBA, the personal tragedies. Baseball was his childhood dream,
Yeah.
Maybe a way to connect with his father.
But let's be honest, baseball wasn't exactly his thing.
No?
That contrast between dominating in the NBA and struggling in baseball is pretty striking.
But even in baseball,
Hmm.
see that work ethic, that competitive fire? He just couldn't conquer that mountain.
Maybe he needed that break, though. And then, bam, I'm back. 1995. Back to the Bulls.
He had never left. Made an impact right away. Hadn't lost his step.
But this was a different Jordan now, right? More mature, more of a leader.
Totally. He was ready for the next chapter.
Which brings us to the second three-peat, 95 to 98. This time it wasn't just about him scoring points. It was about making the whole team better.
He really bought into the system,
Mm.
Trusted his teammates, trusted himself.
Yeah.
And then 98 finals, the last shot, like a movie.
Total career-defining moment. But is it really as perfect as everyone says?
That's what makes it so interesting, right? People still debate it. Was it the perfect ending, or did it overshadow the team, all the work they did to get there?
It's one of those moments. Everyone remembers where they were when it happened. Jordan walks away on top. Seems happy. But he left that door open just a crack. Like maybe he might come back.
And then that brings us to the Wizards' years. Kind of a bittersweet chapter.
Not the ending people expected.
It's a tough one. Even Jordan at 38, he couldn't carry a whole team to a championship.
He still put up good numbers, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. He had that 40-point game when he was 40. Talent was still there. But the situation was different.
He couldn't beat Father Time and carry a whole team at the same time. Shows even legends have limits.
I guess so. But the Wizards' years also show something about Jordan. He just couldn't stay retired. That competitive fire was too strong.
What do you think he was trying to prove? Was it for himself? Or for everyone who said he was done?
Good question. Makes you think about his relationship with the game, with his own legacy.
And it wasn't just basketball during that time.
Right.
There were some big personal things going on, too.
Yeah. His divorce from Juanita after 12 years. That reminds us that behind all the fame and fortune, he was still human, dealing with real-life stuff.
It adds another dimension to the story. So where does that leave us? We've covered a lot. From North Carolina to Chicago basketball to baseball and back again.
We've seen Jordan, the competitor, the teammate, the icon, and the flawed human being. It's a lot more than just highlights.
It's about ambition, perseverance.
Yeah.
The craziness of fame and how he dealt with it, all good and bad.
He pushed limits, redefined what was possible on and off the court.
Yeah.
That's what makes him so fascinating even now.
It's funny, thinking back to the beginning, before the NBA, before all that. It's that little detail about Jordan as a kid bribing his siblings to do his chores that sticks with me.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a metaphor for his whole career, right? Finding ways to work the system to get what he wanted to win. He did it with his siblings. He did it on the court. You could even say he did it with the game of basketball itself.
He definitely left his mark. So that brings us to the big question. What is Jordan's legacy? Is it just about him? The points, the records, the championships?
Or is it about something bigger? How he inspired people all over the world, how he changed what it meant to be a global icon.
Those are the questions that will probably be debated forever.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes him so interesting. He doesn't fit into a neat little box.
He's a figure who people are still fascinated by, even with his flaws, the controversies, everything.
We can look at all the stats, watch every game,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still something about him that we don't know.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of the magic, He left us wanting more, wondering what if.
What if?
Yeah, like what if he'd stayed with baseball? Would he have been as successful? Or was basketball always his path?
It's fun to think about shows as Drive, though. That determination to conquer anything he tried.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Michael Jordan. We covered a lot today.
From North Carolina to Chicago basketball to baseball and back again. His triumphs, his struggles, an amazing life.
I hope you've got a new perspective on how complex he really was.
He was more than just an athlete. He was a force of nature. He changed basketball and left his mark on the world.
That's his airness for you.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll leave you with that. Think about his legacy and what it means to you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
It's crazy to think that even now people are still trying to figure him out.
Right.
Like he was so private, even with all that fame.
It's part of what makes him so interesting, right? Like we see those moments when he gets emotional after winning a championship or whatever, but it always feels like we're only seeing a little part of him.
It's probably why all those documentaries and biographies are so popular. People are just drawn to those figures who are hard to understand, hard to put in a box.
And in a way that makes it more human, I think. Like, he did all these amazing things, but he also had to deal with real problems, just like everyone else.
Thinking back on everything we've talked about, it's interesting how that competitive drive of his, it wasn't just about basketball.
Definitely not.
It was like he needed to be the best at everything. On the court, the baseball field, even in business.
Yeah. He loved a challenge, it seems like.
And that's what really shaped his legacy, I think. That drive to be the best. He wasn't happy with just being good. He had to be at the top.
So that's the question, isn't it? What's the biggest part of his legacy? Is it all the individual stuff? The records, the championships?
Or is it something more? Like how he inspired so many people all over the world. How he changed what it meant to be a global icon.
It's probably both, right?
Yeah.
The amazing talent and then the impact he had on the world. It's a legacy that people will be talking about for a long time.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Michael Jordan. Hopefully we've given you some new things to think about.
Yeah, some new perspectives on his airness.
Exactly. So thanks for joining us. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.